Let's discuss Donna Summer's Love to Love You Baby, written by Donna Summer and Giorgio Moroder, the keyboardist and producer, also produced by Pete Bellotte. This song is famous for its sensuality, and that sensuality obviously comes from Donna Summer's vocal line. So everything in this song is based around the vocal line. Let's take a look at the opening.
So the entirety of the production revolves around the melody that Donna Summer supplied. This shouldn't be surprising, this was the origin of the song. But what Giorgio Moroder does, as we'll see, is builds the entire recording around those elements of the melody, and both melodies are fairly simple. The first part, the I love to love you, baby, that's just C, B flat, back to C, G, B flat. So those are just three of the four notes of the C minor seventh chord. Take a quick look at the notation of that melody. At first, the vocal line is just supported by the hi-hats, the 16th notes on the hi-hats. Then the guitar comes in just playing a C minor chord with the wah, of course, not on an acoustic guitar. And that's the tonic of the key, obviously, is C minor. The bass drum comes in with the four on the floor pattern that's so typical of disco. But then we move to the next progression. And the next progression is a sequence. It's a cycle of fifths, right? Very quickly, it's an F7 that goes to a B minor chord, B flat minor. Then it's an E flat 7 that goes to an A major 7th chord. Then a D half diminished or a D7 flat 5 that goes to a G7 chord. Now the logic of the progression here is quite simple. We start on the C, and then basically what we're doing is we're just walking down. We're on the C minor, and we're going to walk down to the B flat minor, the 7th. Then we'll walk down to the flat 6, the A flat major 7 chord, and then we're going to get down to the G. All the rest of those are just chords that are applied to that main progression. So notice that all we have here is a very typical progression in minor, where we're going from the minor 1 to a minor chord on the flat 7, to a major chord on the flat 6, to the dominant chord on the 5. And that's just elaborated with applied dominance and so on like this. And then we're back to the C minor. Now the melody here is, again, it's quite simple. It's just this chromatic thing that starts not on F, but on F sharp, right? Or G flat. And what that winds up being is the flat 9 of the chord, which makes the chord a little jazzier. And we get this sort of slinky melodic line that comes from the G flat to the F to the E, F flat or E natural with a little upper neighbor to the E flat, and then the C. So that line is. And with the chords, what that winds up being is this. Oh. Okay, so the. All right. Now, after that, the melody comes back, the main melody, the Love to Love You Baby line, and the bass enters. And the bass is actually quite interesting. Take a look at the notation.
What I've done here is I've juxtaposed the melody on the top line with the bass line below it so that you can see how they line up. Notice that the bass line has a lot of syncopation, that broken octave at first, the C, 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 and then the high C. And then pay a special attention to that move from the F sharp to the G at the end of the first measure into the second measure.
So that bass line is basically. Oh, yeah. Now, one of the things that's interesting about that is that you kind of don't expect that G on the downbeat of that second measure. You expect it to come. You would expect something more like so that the downbeat is the C, but instead it's not. And one of the things that's interesting about this tune, when you listen to it very carefully, you'll notice that the bass really emphasizes that C on the second part of the second 16th note of that second measure, whereas the guitar that's doubling the bass does not. The guitar emphasizes the G, and it creates this sort of strange relationship that can feel like maybe the bass player's a little off. And in fact, Giorgio Moroder felt that the bass player didn't quite have it down in some ways, and felt that the bass sounds good in the mix, but maybe wasn't doing his best work. And you can see how that works. But the thing to note here, and I'll put up the notation one more time, is the way that that line emphasizes, so that there's a lot of notes that line up, obviously, not necessarily at the same rhythmic attack, but that line up. And so the bass line is really constructed just to reinforce that vocal line, just like the guitar part with those flat nines is meant to emphasize the vocal line of that second part, so that everything is reinforcing the vocal line here. So one thing that's interesting about disco, of course, is that what we're dealing with is a dance-driven music. The arrangement is one of the most important things. And yet here, the arrangement, everything comes out of this raw material of the vocal line. So that's it for this analysis essay or discussion. Tune in next time for the next one.